I'm like 2 in, but I like started falling asleep during the second one, so I think I'm gonna have to rewatch that episode. Yeah, I like it so far.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it more than the first season so far.
Really?
Yeah.
It just feels like more Witcher to me so far.
Yeah, it just seems better. I just like the content that's being shown here more than the first one.
Everything revolving around Geralt, I really, really like. It's when we cut away from him to other characters that my interest can or can't wane so far. Like things that they're starting to do with Yennefer, I'm like, I kind of just want her to go back to Geralt.
Yeah, on the third episode, I kept it did the same thing. No, it was the second episode where I really strongly felt it this way because it kept going back to Yennefer's stuff, and each time I was like,
I can't care.
Yeah,
I can't care.
I can't really care.
It's
all set up.
Yeah, they are still pulling from books or at least like with Geralt's story. Like they do sort of a monster of the week type thing with Geralt's story.
Yeah.
To kind of give stakes to the individual episode or whatever, which is smart for TV purposes. It's like, okay, hey, I'm in the middle of watching The Witcher. I've never seen a single episode. Okay, there's a lot of it you won't get, but maybe some of it you will, and then they'll start. So episode 2 revolves around this guy who lives in a mansion by himself. I've read that story.
Oh, that was the second episode. No, I meant third episode then. Never mind.
Okay, yeah, it doesn't matter. But that episode, I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I read that story in the books, and it's slightly different, but it's also not. And they did this in the first season as well, where like sometimes characters will be there that weren't there in the books, or like some of the context around the adventure will be a little different, or maybe a character is missing, or maybe they've altered a character to be more one way or the other, and so forth. So far they've been smart with the adaptations, though I've heard deeper into the season they kind of start straying more and more from the books.
See, that was my question, because the third episode does have something where I was left scratching my head, because I'm like, well, I don't know how that's going to go on. I don't know. You've read a little bit of the books.
A little bit. I read the first... I'm reading them chronologically, which is usually not how I like to experience stories, but for whatever reason, I was like, okay, let me do that. Also, the first 2 quote-unquote chronological books are short story books. They have no meaning on the greater narrative of anything. So it kind of plays that way in those books too, where you jump in. Some of these stories are interesting, some of them are not, and that's probably why I lost interest and stopped reading them. Or rather, listening to the audiobook versions of them and so forth. So now it's just the entire first season is the first book, with the exception of a few stories. And so far, I believe where I'm at with this season, at least, I'm only 2 episodes in again. It's the second book.
Okay.
But they are telling an overarching narrative that is either building to the real narrative or of the main narrative of the books, or it is the main narrative of the books, and I just don't know, and they're just kind of sprinkling it in, because they're playing with time a lot. You're not like, they don't overtly say it, but like you're like, oh man, these scenes happened in a way to where it makes it feels like that, and then I guess Geralt and Yennefer are like 100+ years old, and I was like, I don't fucking know. I guess they are. Sure, they live a long time. Who cares?
Yeah. It is hard to say. I think it's like 80 specifically, but it's hard to...
Oh, you know what? I was wrong. The Man in the Mansion is, I think, the first episode. Because the second episode is they go to Kaer Morhen.
Yeah, so I was right originally.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So you were right originally. Yeah, so there was that. Anyways, Connor, let's drop some sense on him, buddy.
Well, maybe not this week.
Maybe not this week. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the 2 Penny Gamescast, episode 75. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host, Connor Elliott. Say hello to the people, Connor.
Here.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, normally on this podcast, what we do is we come to you with the new news you need to know. We come to you with 2 topics, 2 pennies each, and give you our 2 cents on them. However, there's no fucking news this week.
No, none.
Not enough. Like super tiny stories that nobody cares about or whatever. But and also just not enough. It's Christmas. It's Christmas week. We just passed Christmas. We are recording on the 26th. Last week was my birthday. I totally forgot that last week's episode came out on my birthday. But regardless, and then so it's Christmas. All the news cycle, it's all shut down. Everyone went home for the holidays. The gaming industry revolves around, like as soon as it's holiday time, people go home. Developers stop developing. News reporters stop reporting. All of that in this third, and it's to kind of fill it. It's a bunch of fluff out there. Yeah. Top 20 games this year. Top 20 games on the PlayStation 4. Top 20 best Black Friday deal. Who cares? Mm-hmm. Who cares? So this week we thought we would do something a little bit different. We thought we would kind of just have a little bit more of a free discussion, free form episode, kind of around some central topics. So we had one or two topics in mind, and we're just gonna kind of explore it, give it some gas, maybe talk about what we've been playing, and then we'll get out of here. But to start, I thought it would be interesting to talk about. And I guess this is my penny. If this conversation lasts too long and we don't get to your penny, well, then it's just more ammunition for later, isn't it, Connor?
Yeah. Another dead day and dead news week.
They're bound to happen. Yeah. So, this week, this topic, I thought it would be kind of interesting to talk about how to get into gaming. How does one start? Where I don't know anything about it, but my friends have an Xbox. My friends have a PlayStation. They seem to have a really good time. I keep hearing all these great things about video games and stuff, and it's always intrigued me. Or maybe I fell off 15, 20 years ago. I'd like to get back in, but the entire landscape is different now. Where's the best place?
By different, you mean cost more money?
To start, it does cost, well, arguably more money.
The first thing you can do, if you're looking to get into games, is tune into the Two Penny Gamescast.
Absolutely.
That airs every week on Monday, 8 a.m.
God, Connor, this is why I keep you around, man. That's right. You can find this podcast, youtube.com/2pennygamescast, Monday, 8 a.m. Central Time. Also on mainstream podcast services of your choice, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Please like, subscribe, follow, all of that. Spotify just added a rating system to podcasts, so please go over to the main channel page on Spotify. Give us a 5-star review. It'll help out a lot. And if you just want to watch us play video games live, you can do that over at twitch.tv/2pennygames, where every Tuesday, me and my good buddy Phil, we do day-long streams. We put on a show called Hype, Hyep, Have You Ever Played, in which each of us shows the other one a video game that they've never played before. And then you can find those streams edited down in smaller chunks over at youtube.com/2pennygamescast. The first time Phil has ever played Metal Gear Solid 2 is going live bit by bit right now as we speak. So please go check that out. There's whole playlists of every playthrough we've ever done. You can go watch all that. Get in on it. The reviews, after the hype reviews, they're all up. Jack 3 just recently went up this last week. Go check that one out. Did I finally like a Jack and Daxter game? We're going to have to go listen to that review to find out. youtube.com/2pennygamescast. Anyways, Connor, let's get straight into it. How does one get into gaming in the modern era, in today's day and age? There's a lot of factors that play into this, Connor.
Yes.
How much time are you willing to commit to? How much money are you willing to commit? Those are probably the two main things that are going to make some very important decisions for you.
Now, what I wanted to do, if you don't mind, is give some case examples. How did you get into video games? What was your beginning? Can you pinpoint it?
Oh, dude, that's hard, man. Games are kind of always around for me.
Yeah.
Since I was around. And to be fair, this conversation probably requires a more edited, scripted, thought out process, which maybe in the future I'll do something like that, and I'll make a video like that, breaking it down case by case. But I think as a general free roam discussion, maybe you listen to this podcast and you don't know, and you don't play games, but you do enjoy the news cycle stuff, or maybe you're an older gamer who fell out, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do you get in it today? And I think you bring up a great example of how did we get into it, but we grew up in them.
Yes. Game Boy Advance, or whatever consoles
I even recently tried to pinpoint my origin.
Oh.
And my earliest memories is having a Super Nintendo in the house at some point. And I remember asking both my mom and my dad, being like, yo, how did that get into our possession? And both of them were like, no idea. We got it from a neighbor or something, or found it. Couldn't tell you how we got that, but we had it. And then from there, my interest in my obsession, some would call it, grew. Mm-hmm. But if I'm going in, I know nothing, I didn't grow up around it, or maybe I did grow up around it and I fell out, and then 20 years passed and I want to come back because I've got some more free time now. Maybe my kids are moved out of the house. I'm a little older now. How does that work? I think it really does matter on what angle you're taking this from. I think the two big factors are time and money, but it's also what is your main perspective in life? Are you a mother or a father of a couple of children. How old are they? What kind of content can you expose them to? Because, of course, if you're playing video games and they're up and around the house or whatever, and you're trying to kill some time with your new favorite hobby, they're going to show interest in that. Hey, what is this you're doing? Can I play? Can I play with you? That adds a lot of things. So, is your kid old enough to play a game like Call of Duty, or is your kid like 5 years old, 3, 4, 5 years old? And maybe it's best to start them off with something like a Lego game or a Mario game. That is going to feed into your decision of how to get started as well. Now, I would say there's a lot of different angles in which we can take this conversation, but I think the main thing is to describe the main ways that people play today. And I would say there's 4 to 5 main paths that you can take in this. 3 of which being the big 3. The Xbox, the PlayStation, the Nintendo, whatever Nintendo platform is by the time you're listening to this recording. Right now it's the Switch.
Yes.
So you can do one of those big 3. If you're willing to say, hey man, I know I like video games. I've played them at friends' houses. I used to game back in the day, and I've got a little bit of income. I'm willing to splurge. You can go the PC route for the big optimal experience. Or if you're like, yo, I really have no idea, and I'm really just kind of looking for a time killer, something to kill my time when I have nothing else to do, you can go a mobile gaming route. Your phone. Go jump into the nearest app store, check out what's hot this week, just download a couple of free games or whatever, play around, see what you like. Puzzle games, strategy games, time wasters, Clash of Clans, Candy Crush, stuff like that. Something to just kind of kill time while you're on the toilet or standing in line for a roller coaster or a movie or something, Just something to kind of fill that gap. I think mobile games are a great place for people to start, and I think a lot of people, and it's the most accessible way to start, which is nice. But maybe you've been doing that for a little while. Maybe you're like, you know what? I do like games, and I would like to have a more premium experience, or maybe a more fleshed out experience, or something that is a little more one-to-one. Maybe I can just play a little better. Or I keep hearing these great things about games that are giving a huge cinematic experience that I can't get on my phone. Well, now the conversation gets complicated, Connor. And I think probably the most accessible route from there is our big 3.
Yes. Definitely the most accessible. I mean, first of all, let's start with the easiest one to get right now if you decided to go out tomorrow and buy some console, which is the Nintendo Switch. With supply lines fucked up and semiconductors and whatnot being hard to get, the production of new PlayStations and new Xboxes has been pretty difficult. Whereas the Switch, pretty easy to get your hands on and cheaper than those 2 options if you're looking to get the biggest new console. Because, of course, you could go the route of PS4 or Xbox 360 or Xbox One. Something that's been out for a while, already has a pretty good catalog that have a bunch of cheap games on them that you can access. That's one of those really easy, accessible ways to get it, especially if you can find some kind of console on somewhere like Craigslist or some seller in your area or some secondhand video, electronic store. It's not that difficult to get some of those older consoles, but going back on track to what's new, the Switch has some great games that have the added bonus of being able to play most anywhere because of the remote function of taking the Switch wherever you go. Don't do it in traffic, but you can do it in lines and whatnot.
Yeah.
And airports and on flights.
Exactly.
And you're starting to get more access to more classic games. So if you didn't grow up on the games that many other gamers that are alive today played, you can catch up on them. A lot of the Final Fantasy games are available. You can't get the Mario games anymore, can you?
No,
really.
Nintendo has weird things. But I think you're on a good path here with those big 3. There's nothing wrong with buying an older console for cheaper.
No.
First off, if you're just starting out, hey, PlayStation 4, $250 or whatever at GameStop used. No problem with that. Put down $200, invest another $120, $300, or for a total of like maybe $350, $400, and get yourself a big stack of classic games. GameStop has a greatest hits catalog where you can get a bunch of games for cheap or whatever, and all resale things. Oh, I heard things about The Last of Us. Let me try The Last of Us out. Oh, Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. I just watched the new movie. I'm in the mood to... I want to feel like Spider-Man, quote unquote. That's a joke in the gaming community, but you don't know that. I want to feel like Spider-Man. Oh, Batman. Great. Let me pull that off the shelf. Everybody likes Grand Theft Auto. Let me pull that off the shelf. That's a great way to get started and to kind of test the waters and so forth and that. But maybe it's like, hey, I don't have a lot of time, and when I do get home from a long day at work, I don't always want to like sit in front of my couch and play. Sometimes I want to lie in my bed. Sometimes I want to just throw on a movie or something. But you are right with the portability of the Switch. being a plus for this factor because, I can, let's say I fly a lot for my job. I go out of town a lot. Oh, Switch is great for the airport, man.
It's easy as hell to bring around with you. You can even bring the dock in your suitcase to play it at whatever hotel you stay at.
Yep. Hook it up to a TV so you can still have that TV experience, or you're just sitting and waiting for a baggage claim, or you're just waiting for your plane to get in, and you're just sitting at the terminal for an hour. There you go. Bam, right there. Huge flight delays. Hey, I've got my Switch with me. I've got my plug. I can charge it at any electricity port or whatever.
I did that last week. Easy.
Exactly.
There was one right on my seat that I was waiting for my flight on. Played for 3 hours.
There you go.
2 hours.
The setback, I would argue, for the Switch is you're not going to get the best games on Switch, but you are going to get really good games on Switch. And it's just not the most accessible platform for developers to develop on. So Call of Duty, you're going to miss out on. Mm-hmm. Madden, you're going to miss out on.
Really, any sports games.
Really any sports games. Mm-hmm. All those big heavy hitter games that you've always heard about, the Halos and the Call of Duties and all of that, that you're like, oh, maybe I'll start with those. The Switch is going to miss that. But there are great places to start with there, too. Pretty much any Mario game is going to be of some quality. Yeah. You're going to have a good time with a Mario game. Doesn't matter what type. Mario Kart, Mario 3D All-Stars, 3D Super 3D Mario Land, whatever it's called. Anything with Mario on it, probably a good time.
Breath of the Wild is good as well. I've seen kids play that game.
Breath of the Wild, Minecraft, all of these big time sink games that can start you off easy. Now, Connor, something we don't really always appreciate is that us growing up with games, we naturally, and the age group that we're in, we naturally made the jump from 2D to 3D. Let's say you're 40, 50 years old. You haven't played, or even upper 30s or whatever. You haven't played a video game in 15 years, 20 years, I hopped on, I liked games, but I got into my teens and it was all kiddie stuff. It was all Mario. Mm-hmm. It was all Sonic. It was all 2D things. Oh, now there's a third dimension, Y-axis, all of this looking around stuff. The motor functions are not going to be there. And I think games on Nintendo Switch, which are usually aimed for kids, especially Nintendo games, or at least the level of difficulty is lower, but they're still enjoyable for gamers even like us who just like really good games. That's a good training ground, a good starting place to kind of build up that motor functionality. I know where the buttons are, or I can find out where these buttons are to where I don't have to look at the controller every time I boot it up. I can, it starts slow and then I can take it from my own pace from there. Or there are great games, classic games that are inspired by classics that I grew up with as a child. The Messenger,
Octopath
Traveler, what's the one? Celeste. These are all great, or, just some classic 2D Marios or 3D Marios and so forth to where, I can kind of get some familiarity built up in my hands and stuff and some muscle memory to kind of learn how to do this without really feeling lost or feeling like I'm at a disadvantage here. Lego games are great. I learned how to navigate 3D spaces through Lego games, and they're still fun to this day. Sure, they're a little kiddie. Sure, they're built and meant for kids, but I think as a grown man, they're still really fun and exciting to get into. My most anticipated game of next year is a Lego Star Wars game. Mm-hmm. So, let that speak for itself. From there, where was I going with that thought? See, this is why
you start with 2D. You start with 2D games.
Yeah,
so it's a way to transition into the more 3D,
into some
3D.
Take it slower. Minecraft is that's a slower paced game. Go at your own pace. Build. You can set it to where there's enemies that are attacking you or not. Maybe you're just in creative mode and you're just building, and it's Legos. It's Legos. It's a video game, but Legos.
Yeah. If you want to make some kind of incremental change past that point, go to something like Hades. It's a little bit harder.
It's much harder. That's much harder. But at the same time, no camera controls in that game. But
simple controls,
exactly. And it builds on itself in a way to where you can kind of learn that. And it just happens to be one of the greatest games ever.
Yeah. Surprise.
A game like Fire Emblem, where everything's on a board. It's essentially like Harry Potter, but chess.
Yeah, you literally don't need any motor function. Well, you need motor function, but you don't need skilled motor function to play that game, because it's you literally play it in slow.
Take your time,
plan out what you're doing,
think it out, all that great stuff.
Yeah.
So the Switch is a great place to start. On top of that, if you're a family and you have a bunch of kids and they're going to be interested in seeing what you're doing, or you want to play it with them, the Switch is a great place for families. Man. being able to take the Switch out of the dock and hand it to your kid and say, hey, go play in your room.
Yeah.
You know, or something like that. Great parental controls on the Switch. I just saw my aunt has timers on the Switch, so her boys can only play it for a certain amount of time, and for only so long before those timers click in and say, hey, okay, we're done, we're playing for today. So there's great ways that you can kind of navigate that as well. And then even on top of that, the Switch just naturally is begging for multiple people to play it at the same time. The Joy-Cons are, yeah, sure, one controller by themselves, but you can also split them up individually and play Mario Kart together, or Smash Brothers together, or something with a more simple control scheme together. And sure, Joy-Cons as pairs are expensive at $80. No way around that. And Nintendo Switch games in general never really go down in price, so it's really hard to see them in bargain bins. But at an entry point of $300, okay, invest another $120 or so for $60 titles, or you know, peruse around the Nintendo shop on the Switch itself to kind of get maybe a $20 experience with Celeste or The Messenger or something like that. Then you can kind of start figuring out where you're going from there. If you're looking for maybe a more cinematic approach, maybe you're like, hey man, I do know I like games, but the idea of multiplayer stresses me out. You know, I don't want to be competitive. I'm just looking for something cool and escape, like something to escape into, a whole world, a whole story, something like that. That's where the conversation gets a little more complicated, and I think the Nintendo Switch gracefully bows out of this conversation. Those are more game focused. That's a more gaming focused platform in the sense of like, I'm looking for a high score. I'm looking for fastest race. I'm looking for it's a fighting game and we're competing and stuff like that. Or it's a level based thing. It's get through the level you know, at your own pace, or how quickly as you can, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're not really focused on telling you a story. There's not going to be a great narrative through line through a lot of those games. They exist. They're there for sure. Fire Emblem is a great example of that. Any Final Fantasy game that's on the Switch is a great example of that.
Hades once again
does tell a great narrative, but at the same time is more focused on being a more traditional game where you're like, okay, it's just about gameplay. It's just about me having fun, mashing buttons, all of that. If you're looking for more of an escapist point of view, and still looking for an accessible entry point where you don't have to worry about, you know, all of the hasslings of a PC with the GPUs and the motherboards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then you're really between an Xbox and a PlayStation. This is where things get even more complicated, especially in this day and age, because you do have a lot of options in front of you. I don't think anybody would deny the most premium and the most impactful narrative experiences and the most impactful, like, cinematic experience and greatest stories with the biggest production values. They're over on the PlayStation with great games like God of War, Spider-Man, The Last of Us, Uncharted, Horizon Zero Dawn, Ghost of Tsushima. I could go on for days about these. And if you're interested in that, I mean, it's kind of hard right now to pick up a PlayStation 5, and at $600 for... Oh, no, I'm sorry, $500?
Yeah, $500 the most if you're getting the disc version.
$500 with the disc, $400 discless if you want to go all digital, which is fine. Either of those works. It's the most expensive console-based option you have. Arguably, for the best quality premium experience to get right now on the console market. And then from there, it's like, okay, how much do you really want to invest? You know, a $500 console, that's not a cheap investment.
No.
And then now you have to pay $70 a game to get that. Or maybe we reach back into a back catalog. There's a lot of great experiences on the PlayStation 4, which is closing in on its 10th anniversary, in 2 years now? In which we had some of the most revelatory video game experiences to date. God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon, Last of Us Part 1 and 2, Uncharted, the entire collection 1 through 4 are all there, and you can get them all for pretty cheap at this point. So, maybe a PS4, okay, it's $300, just like the Switch, but I'm getting that more premium experience with it that I so desperately want, and there's all these great games ranging in prices depending on where you go and how you get there and so forth. that I just named a whole bunch. Any of those will work for you.
Yes. Now, as you mentioned before, just real quick, games now can be pricey to get into, especially if you're trying to break into the gaming world.
Exactly.
So, though you will be sacrificing some great narratives, not being on the PlayStation, the Xbox the Xbox One and the Series X, if you can get it, both have Xbox Games Pass, which give you access to large amounts of games that you can play over and over and over.
Exactly.
Again.
And I was just about to get into that.
You were.
Let's say you're brand new. Mm-hmm. You have no idea what you want or what you like. Gaming is not a cheap hobby. And I really think the best bang for your buck is going to be on the Xbox.
Specifically the Xbox One, due to the price range, it's way easier to get, both in terms of price and availability compared to the Series X. And frankly, as of right now, you're going to get most of the same games. Only you don't have to deal with having to be left out of other games until a year later.
Yeah.
For now, you have access to pretty much everything.
Now, if you're undeniably, if you're brand new, you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go, you don't even know 100% what you might or may not like. The Xbox is the best way to play. It's got the most consumer-friendly practices, the most options for you, and the best opportunity to really get the most bang out of your buck here. Mm-hmm. Specifically, like you already brought up, Xbox Game Pass. It's Netflix, but video games. And it ranges a large variety of things. It's not too expensive. It's about $15 a month. And it gives you games from last gen, the current gen, and even the gen before last with that. Now, you mentioned the Xbox One is probably the best option. I would argue spend just a little more money. Just a little more. It's not going to cost you too much more. Get an Xbox One X.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because that one will run a little better. It'll last you a little longer to get new games that are still coming out. And it will, and it's smaller than the original Xbox One, so it's easier to move around. It's easier to travel with. It's easier to set up. All of that. And then on top of that, Xbox, if you are someone who suffers from a disability of some kind, Xbox has so many more programs and platforms and technologies in order to help you still get into gaming any way you want. Really is the best bang for your buck on that. On top of that, any Xbox, at least Xbox One onwards, is backwards compatible and forwards compatible. For now. We'll see how long that lasts. Yeah. So, the new Halo Infinite just dropped. Ideally, if you're Microsoft, who owns Xbox, ideally, you are going to want for gamers to buy Halo Infinite on the new console, the Xbox Series X. But Halo Infinite, which is the new, and maybe you're interested in that one, it is available on your Xbox One, launch from 2013, on your Xbox One X from 2015, 16, somewhere around there, and your Xbox Series X. So you can get that on any of those platforms. On top of that, Xbox has a great backwards compatibility program. Let's say you were a gamer from the original Xbox days, and you grew up playing games like Splinter Cell, or some old Star Wars video games, like Episode 3, the movie, the game, or whatever, or Episode 1, Speed Racer, or something, whatever it's called. Or maybe you were playing around with Thief or old Halo games or something like that, and you're like, man, I kind of just want that experience again. Bam, there you go, all in one machine right here. You got your old games, because Xbox One currently has the best backwards compatibility program of the big three, and they're constantly adding new games that at this point it's just random games that just happen to be on an Xbox platform. And they're like, you know what, let's make it playable in today's day and age the best way possible. And some of it is, let's say you have an old disc lying around, like an old Splinter Cell disc, you can literally, or a Fallout 3 disc or something like that, you can just plug it into your Xbox and it'll work. I don't know how they got that to work. The technology is super impressive and it's fantastic. And then again, let's refocus here on Xbox Game Pass. For $15 a month, it's Netflix but video games. Okay, I'm jumping into games. I'm willing to spend a little bit, not a lot. Okay, an Xbox One, an Xbox One X, $300, $350, somewhere around there, $400 maybe. Sure, that's a big investment up front. oh shit, now you're telling me I have to buy $60 games? Fuck, man, that's one. I can afford one game right now, or I can afford one game a year right now.
Mm-hmm.
But with Xbox Game Pass, $15 a month, it's Netflix for video games. You can play whatever you want that's available on the service, of course.
And it's actually $10 a month because you have the $10
on PC.
On Xbox as well. I actually found out recently because I just got Xbox Games Pass, the $1 a month.
They do start at $1 a month.
They do.
With Game Pass, so it's a great entry point on there.
Yeah, they offer, I'm assuming you'll find the truth in a second. They do offer, it's $10 if you just want either on console or PC. You get to choose when you sign up for the subscription. So, really, the hardest part is going to be getting an access to an Xbox. Not even access to it, just paying for it in the first place. You looking for it?
I am, but the thing is not.
See all plans.
Subscription continues automatically at $14.99 per month unless canceled through your Microsoft account. Here's all the different plans. This is Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which they describe as best value, $15 a month. PC, $10 a month. Console, $10 a month. The differences between Ultimate and PC is Ultimate comes with Xbox Live Gold, which allows you to play games online, multiplayer with your friends.
Unlimited, it doesn't matter which console.
You can play from the cloud, you get discounts and deals, free perks, and stuff like that. Okay, so the main deal about Xbox Game Pass is you can play over 100 high-quality console games on your console or PC. The account works both ways.
Even mobile devices.
If you have a PC. And even some mobile devices through the cloud. I think you need Xbox, or I think you need the Ultimate subscription for that.
Yes, that is.
Because on your phone, it's all through the cloud, which people say works great. New games are added all the time, and I'm reading directly from their website. And Xbox Game Studios titles released the same day on Xbox Game Pass, member discounts and deals. Okay, so the idea of the Xbox Studios releasing same day on Xbox Game Pass was revolutionary in my mind. I have not given Microsoft a single dollar since I've given them many dollars actually, but I've not bought an individual game from Microsoft since I got Xbox Game Pass. I played Halo Infinite, not for free, but it felt like it was for free because I just downloaded it and had it because I have this subscription in the background. And in the meantime, I'm playing old classic games that I love, like the Halo Master Chief Collection, like Sunset Overdrive, like several Call of Duty games or whatever. The PC platform also includes EA Play, and the Ultimate also includes EA Play. So you're getting $15 a month. You're getting Microsoft games and EA games, which is a third-party thing. They do all of your sports games, essentially, your FIFAs, your Maddens, and like that. But they've also got like a bunch of Star Wars games up there. They've got great games like It Takes Two, which is just one game of the year. So if you have Xbox Ultimate for $15 a month, you get to play Game of the Year 2021 on an Xbox One. And it all just kind of works, and it's all just there for you, ready to go.
Yep.
You just download whatever game strikes your fancy, and it's almost like it almost takes us back to the old days of before really the internet took over, and reviews and gameplay was plastered all over YouTube, where we would just walk into a random game store and just pick something random off the shelf based on the artwork that we like. Game Pass kind of brings that back, where you're like, what is this game? The art looks cool. Oh, I read the description, first-person shooter, in space, yada, yada, yada. Sure, let me download it, try it out for 15 minutes. Oh, you know what? I don't like this game. Or it doesn't run very well, or it's just not appealing to me. That's fine. Delete. Let's go back to that list. Let's see what else we got going on here. And you can download as many games as you want.
Yeah.
It's not just to one. It's, okay, I got Splinter Cell right here. I got Halo right here. I've got, what's the new hotness with Xbox? It Takes Two. I've got 12 minutes right there. Bam. Now I've got a whole series of, or different types of games. I've got a first-person shooter. I've got a third-person action game. I've got a co-op game that I can play with a friend or a family member or a significant other. And I've got a strategy game.
There's your month of subscription, giving you a whole month of content.
Right
over
there.
A month of content.
If I were to do that on PlayStation, what I just described with those 4 games would have cost me $280 or something like that.
Yeah.
And with that, you got it for $10. You got it for $15. Great bang for your buck, and really one of the best options out there for new gamers who don't 100% know what they're getting into.
Now, I want to do a radical suggestion for some people. This is specifically for people, definitely not for younger people. Well, young people, but not younger, like kids. College age, high school, middle high school, adults. Yeah. Maybe just double down, go for a PC. Because, yeah, it's expensive, it's pricier, especially if you're looking to get a nicer PC. But, first of all, you could get a cheaper $500 PC and play most of the games on Steam without much trouble, which is what I'm doing currently right now. Or, better yet, the big reason why you can also get a PC is it has uses beyond just playing video games. I can attest to that having a PC has made my life, especially as a college student, much, much easier instead of having to rely on any kind of, school computer that they might give you. So even if for some reason you end up not being into video games, unlike with the Xbox or PlayStation, where if you don't take the bite for video games, well, you just sunk money into a console that you probably won't use again or may have to give it away. Whereas a PC, you can go on YouTube, you can do work, you can download any other number of apps like Netflix, you can have YouTube, whatever. You have a lot more options for your day-to-day life in other forms of entertainment other than just video games. So it does have some fallback potential that you can rely on.
That's not a bad argument. The problem is that with PC, and you're right. Let's say, okay, I took a chance, I put the money in, and I invested in an Xbox or I invested in a PlayStation. And you know what? Honestly, this art form just isn't speaking to me. It's just not working. Okay, well now I have a $300, $400, $500, $600 machine that's just going to sit there and collect dust until I sell it or until I just give it away, maybe to a cousin, maybe in a yard sale, maybe to a friend, whatever.
Be a scalper.
Yeah. Oh, please don't do that. No, don't do that.
You'll get a bite.
So with the idea of maybe a PC or a gaming laptop, something like that, sure, I spent a little more money than I would have liked to on a computer, but if I tried it and it doesn't work, or I tried it and it's not to my taste, okay, I can fall back on this tool that I just spent this amount of money on does still have uses for me.
How do you think we film
this
podcast?
The problem is that I disagree. Exactly, we do this podcast on it, for example, or my current gaming laptop was like $1,200 when I bought it. It was a brand new laptop, came out that year, et cetera, and it plays 90% of games at an acceptable level. Sometimes I have to go into some settings and mess some things around or whatever to get it to function at its highest performance rate. But if I'm playing a single player game, I'm running most games on high settings with my machine and having a good time with very little frame rate drops. But the difference here is you said $500, that you're very quickly going to be outmatched by whatever new hotness is coming out.
Yes,
then you're going to have to invest in something else. However, with my perspective, I bought a gaming laptop. What I bought is what I got, and I can't really adjust it in any way. So as soon as my laptop becomes out of date, I got to get something else. With the $500, sure, that might be a good starting point, but you're very quickly going to have to invest another $250 to get a new graphics card or something.
Yeah.
If you get into gaming and it does work, you're very quickly going to have to get some more GPU or RAM or something in order to just even play the game or get it to function or launch properly, or even just to turn the computer on. Because just the more you have on the computer, the slower the more it's gonna be affected. And on top of all of that, things go wrong on PC as a platform.
Oh yeah.
Randomly, for no reason. An update will go through on one application, and it'll break everything.
A guy that I follow on YouTube had, over the course of Christmas, put more RAM onto his computer. It just doesn't work anymore. Doesn't know what happened to it. Random things like that, one mishap, and that's more money down the drain than you otherwise would have gone down.
It's more or less on you to figure it out and fix it. It's a lot of Google searches. It's a lot of frustration. It's a lot of, fuck, man, where the fuck is this file? God damn it, I wish I was better organized in my keeping of files. Or what the fuck do you mean run it as an administrator?
Yeah.
You know? It's things like that may or not work. Now, there are great... what do they call it? What is Steam? What is Steam defined as? Launcher. There's great video game launchers in which they do most of the heavy lifting for you these days. Steam is the biggest one. It's the most accessible one. That in the Epic Game Store, which has some setbacks, but is getting there to being a one-to-one competitor. But in which you go into their store, you find a game, you buy it, and then Steam does most of it for you. But then you can run into some trouble. So it's a little bit like, how much work and how much money am I willing to put in and invest? it is undeniable you will get the most premium experience on a PC. Let's say I want to spend $1,500 on a brand spanking new machine with really great parts and a great graphics card and some really lots of RAM and stuff.
You're sitting pretty damn pretty.
I'm willing to spend $500 on a really nice monitor or something like that. You're going to be sitting pretty for quite a few years, and even later down the line, you'll still be able to, let's say new consoles were coming out this year, and I decided to spend $1,700, $2,000, whatever on a PC. That PC will outlast those new consoles.
Yeah.
So in the long run, ideally, you're still getting a good amount of value for the amount you're putting in, but it's the level of commitment and the amount of troubleshooting and work you're going to have to put in. Halo Infinite, I'm playing on PC through Xbox Game Pass on PC, which, by the way, another good reason to invest in PC. Game Pass is on there. So you still got your Netflix for games on there. So let's say, okay, yeah, sure. I'm looking for a new computer. It's probably going to cost me about $800. Let me throw in an extra $400 on top of that, or whatever. I'll save up for another 6 months to a year, and let me save up so that it can also play video games. And then for $10 a month, I'll get Xbox Game Pass, and I get to play all the video games for as long as I want, however long I want, and as many games as I want. It's a great way to get into gaming that way. It just requires a little more setup, a little more prior knowledge. You're gonna have to look around. You're gonna have to figure out where you can pick and choose and go, okay, well, I don't really care about the most high fidelity. I'm just starting or whatever. Or the games that I want to play, they're not the most graphically intensive games, so it really doesn't matter in that sense. Or X, Y, Z, and all of that. It's really a matter of looking at the marketplace, looking at the industry for PC, and really nitpicking what you want and don't want, and making decisions from there that are best for you.
Yeah.
I personally, for a new gamer, would caution you from a PC and say go with one of the big three, right. And then from there make your choice, because it's just easier. The games are going to work. If it doesn't work, it's usually the console's fault, not your fault.
Yeah. And
you can get that fixed through an easy Google search or PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo support. There was a time where my PlayStation 4 wasn't working. I sent it in. 2 weeks later, it came back, no charge, because they were like, "No, we fucked up on this. It's our fault. Here you go."
Yeah,
simple things like that can happen, and it takes a lot of the stress off of the consumer and allows you to just really enjoy games for what they are.
It is a radical jump. But I just find a lot of use for PCs beyond just games, so
exactly.
You still have that, which is always in my mind.
But I would recommend start with a console.
Yeah.
And if it does, if what is it? The bug bite. If the bug bites you, what bites you?
If the horse kicks you, I don't know.
If it works and you enjoy it and you love it and you spend 3 to 5, 10 years, whatever, catching up on the latest and greatest, or you've been playing the latest and greatest and you're looking for a better experience, then transition to a PC. But I would highly, highly recommend start with one of the big three: an Xbox, a PlayStation, a Switch, and then from where you're coming at it and what you're looking for, you can make smarter decisions based off of that. Now, if you're like, hey man, I just want to play with my friends, get whatever your friends have. That's really the end of it.
Yeah. If they play on PlayStation, get PlayStation.
However, if they all play on PC, more than likely, these days, crossplay is becoming more and more relevant these days, to where it doesn't really matter what you play on, you can still play together. So ideally, if all your friends play on PC, but you're not willing to drop the amount of the chunk of change that it requires to play that, but they're all playing Halo right now, go grab yourself an Xbox One for $250, $300. Get Xbox Game Pass. Hey, you can play with your friends.
Yeah. Done.
Yeah. Done deal. There is a solution for every problem out there. It's just a matter of not being scared of the number of options you have and figuring out what the best course of action is for you.
Mm-hmm. I do have one more radical decision that you can go with. Radical decision that you can do to try and get into video games. And I mentioned before secondhand electronic stores. It is very easy to get an older console. I'm talking like GameCube. I'm talking... Well, GameCube is not the best one. But
it's not that easy to get some of these consoles.
Sometimes it can be. Like PlayStation 2, I see those almost every secondhand electronics store
They're
I go
everywhere.
into, I see it all the time.
They're everywhere.
And you have access to games that you can easily find someone, if you want to talk about video games with somebody, of, a Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah.
You can find a bunch of people that have played that and have some common ground with the gaming community if you're trying to have some level ground. Because jumping into it late, you are going to have some issues where sometimes people will be like, oh, my first game was Sly Cooper, the 3, what's the third one? Whatever that was called.
3, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. They played Sly 3. It was so
Honor
cool.
Among Thieves.
Honor Among Thieves, yeah. You can find common ground with people in Sly 3 and in the Metal Gear Solid games and
I played a lot of
fighting
SOCOM
games.
growing up. Oh, yeah, dude, I love SOCOM, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Walk into a GameStop, walk into a retro tech store or a retro nerd store, whatever. These people are always willing to talk to you. They're always willing to chat you up and say, oh, yeah, man, I love that too. Or oh, yeah, man, hey, if you liked this, you might want to go this route because this game's great. Usually they're either knowledgeable about that same era of gaming, or they know in what direction to kind of point you. And and more often than not, they're more than willing to talk to you about it and have a great conversation with you. It's very rarely where they're like, got to stick up their ass or they're going to be kind of elitist towards you. It can happen. It can most definitely happen. But in person, most people are just excited that you're excited.
Yeah. So that's an option you can go for. Play some old games. Have some play what we played when we were younger.
Yeah.
And it's also good if you're trying to learn video games because we learned video games on that as kids.
Yep.
You can try to do the same thing.
And also at the end of the day, if you're jumping in and you're like, man, I really have no idea. There's so many video games out there. I have no idea where to even start. There's nothing big video game websites love to do more than lists. Here are the top 50 games on the PlayStation 3. Here are the top 50 games on the PS2. Here are the top 100 games of the last 10 years or whatever the fuck.
You can go year by year.
Year by year. What were the best games in this last year? Here's a list of 20.
Go to the old IGN article or GameFAQs article about the best 2003 video game. Something like that.
One of them sounds great. Cool. Check it out. What platform is it on? Mm-hmm. It's on this? All right. I'm going to get one of those, and I'm going to start with that one because it's piqued my interest, and I've watched a couple of YouTube videos. I really want to play that.
I mean, hell, I bought an Xbox 360 so I could play Oblivion. I don't know why I chose the 360 out of all of them, but that's what I did. Just because you can find...
the games worked best on that.
You can find one game and be like, okay, that's enough of a reason for me to check out this console, especially if it's not too big of a price to have to sink some money into. You have a lot of options with the kind of game consoles you have options with. It's really just a matter of knowing what you're going to be getting beforehand, so you don't just get a console that you heard somewhere by someone that it was the one to get and you have no games that you're interested in, or they're not the type of games that you'd play, narrative compared to multiplayer games.
Mm-hmm. Now, to kind of transition into the difference in games and stuff, let's address just maybe a couple of myths that you might have heard on the internet or somewhere. There's a lot of narratives that, get thrown around in this industry that get thrown around for a long time because it takes a long time for things to change in this industry that may or may not be true anymore. I think the prime example of this is for the last, almost 10 years now, there's been a narrative around the Xbox that Xbox has no games. Mm-hmm. Sure, they've got a quality console. Sure, it's a great place to play Call of Duty or something on, but they have no games. In the last few years, Xbox has been acquiring huge gaming studios and are beefing up their catalog daily. That, in combination with Xbox Game Pass that we talked about earlier, has put them on equal footing with any other platform, and there's no denying it. Recently, they just acquired one of the biggest video game publishers with Take-Two, which owns Bethesda games, which you may have heard of, Fallout or Skyrim or Doom. One of those types of games.
Take-Two?
No.
ZeniMax.
Yeah,
I was like,
thank you. I'm so sorry. ZeniMax. They acquired ZeniMax, which owns Bethesda, which has 5 or 6 studios under its belt. So now you're getting some of the biggest and what am I trying to say? You're getting some of the greatest genre-defining video games of the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, with that, and it's all on Xbox Game Pass. Literally, there's a joke that Skyrim is on everything. You could literally play it on your Alexa for a little while, or maybe you still can. And it's just a joke, but Skyrim really is one of the biggest video games of all time for a reason, and that's because It's a damn good game.
Yeah.
And it's owned by Xbox now. You can still get it on PlayStation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, it's just an example of how that narrative that Xbox doesn't have great games is kind of gone.
And even changing more and more and more with the acquiring of like ZeniMax.
Yeah.
They've been acquiring. I'm trying to struggle to remember another off the top of my head, but they've been working.
Oh, they got Double Fine Productions.
Fine, yeah.
Great games like Psychonauts 2, which just came out this last year, which got huge Game of the Year buzz.
It did. The underrated Brutal Legend that everyone should play.
Everyone should absolutely play. I believe that is on Xbox backwards compatibility.
I think it is.
So on and so forth. They've got what's the studio that's making Perfect Dark? They've got Ninja Theory, which is about to come out with Hellblade Senua's, what is it called?
Retribution? I don't know.
Something like that. Which looks to be a great narrative cinematic experience tackling issues of mental health and so forth. So, and on top of that, it's just going to be a trip to play.
Crystal Dynamics.
Nope. Nope. No, that's wrong. That's a Square Enix studio, my friend.
For Perfect Dark? Yeah.
No, the new one. Look up the new one. No, Crystal Dynamics is helping. They're not the ones that are, they're not the mainstay studio. Oh, it's the Initiative. That's their studio that they made themselves.
It was like hidden in there. I was like, what?
My apologies. Anyways, there's great examples of that where Xbox is really on an equal playing field with everybody else when it comes to great quality gaming experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the most 10 out of 10s are going to be over on PlayStation. Every one of those games is going to be life-changing, quote-unquote. Every one of those games you're going to be thinking about for the rest of your life. Man, that level in The Last of Us, whoa, that moment, that cutscene, wow. Or how often is the Uncharted 2 train sequence talked about in this day? Man, when that train sequence hit, that changed what I thought video games could be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And if you're getting into video games, you've never heard of those moments.
You haven't, but just know that PlayStation as a platform is the place to go for the best. Like, this is the most high-tier, high-quality things. However, PlayStation does falter on the multiplayer front, which Xbox does do a good job in with games like Halo and so forth. But if you're looking to game with your friends, you're going to find something to play on every platform. Fortnite is everywhere. Call of Duty is everywhere. Minecraft is everywhere. You can play it everywhere and play with your friends and have a good time. And a lot of those games do have crossplay. Call of Duty, doesn't matter what console you have. Doesn't matter what system you're on. You can play with your friends. Fortnite, doesn't matter. You can play with your friends, et cetera, et cetera. And that is only going to become more and more true as we go on. Another big narrative that I think was going around the industry for quite a few years is that single-player games are dying. They're all games of service. You have to commit to one. It's one game over and over. And while there are great benefits to games of service games, Destiny 2, for example, is a game where it's continuously living. It's a one-time purchase, and then sure, you pay a $30, $40 charge for the new expansion or whatever, and every day there's something to do. And it's just a nice little mindless thing that you can go in and be comfortable in, and it's your comfort food for when you get off of work. Okay, I'm gonna go run a couple of missions in Destiny tonight before I go to bed. Something like that. That's great. It's on everything. So if that's what you're looking for, maybe go to Xbox. Maybe get a Game Pass subscription. Maybe try it out that way. Who knows? It's up to you. And then even on top of that, getting back to what I was talking about, the idea that single-player narrative experiences are dying. If you want to get in a game, you have to play the new Call of Duty. You have to play the new multiplayer thing that everybody's playing, Fortnite, et cetera, whatever you can name.
This is something that even executives of certain companies have come out and said, single-player games, we won't focus on them much anymore because they're not where the money is, or they're not where the attention is, which is undeniably untrue because I think it was some of the highest-selling games of last year were all single-player games.
Yeah. Well, even with that narrative was going around in huge waves 2016, 2017, 2018. Go back and look. Some of the highest-selling games of that year were single-player narrative-driven games.
It happens a lot.
God of War 2018. Spider-Man 2018.
2018
Uncharted 4 2016. Last of Us Part 2 2020. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest selling games on the platform. Ghost of Tsushima 2020.
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Final Fantasy VII Remake. Which I wouldn't recommend that game as a first time.
I would not,
but but Last of Us, Uncharted, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, I think is a great starting. Ghost is a great starting game.
No, yeah, I think it is. It has does it have good accessibility? If you're trying to.
Oh, accessibility. It's got okay ones
Okay.
for disabled gamers. It's got solid ones. Not the most mind blowing, but there are options there, and they've made it better since launch.
Couldn't remember.
And Ghost of Tsushima also has a great multiplayer mode, which is fun to play with friends. That they just recently dropped a new expansion for in. So there really is. There's so many great options. It's just a matter of sitting back, going, okay, how much am I willing to spend? And do know going in, you're going to spend a little bit of money. Not an insignificant amount, but you do have options. There are tiers to it in which you can really get the best bang for your buck for a $250, $300 Xbox One launch, which going in isn't going to be the most premium experience. But through that, I can get back catalog games that I played as a kid, or maybe everybody on the internet is saying, "Oh man, the first Halo was so great," or this game from my childhood is so great. Oh, I'd love to try that. Where can I get it? Xbox, more likely than not, is a easier way to get some of those older games. And Xbox Game Pass, Netflix, but video games, man. How often are you just scrolling through Netflix, you click on something random, and then it's your new favorite TV show, or it's one of your favorite movies? Now, just because you randomly clicked on it on Netflix. Xbox Game Pass functions the exact same way. Mm-hmm. You just gotta wait for the download.
Yeah, that's an annoying thing.
Old
games didn't have to deal with that problem. That's one of the benefits of them. No download.
But at the same time, you don't have options like Xbox Game Pass in the old days.
You do not. So in those older games consoles, you would have to buy each game.
Yeah.
No way around.
And sometimes those games were $100.
Yeah.
Sometimes they were $20, but often they were $60, $70, $80. The price ranged, and then it centrified around $60, and then lately it's gone back up to $70, which is unfortunate.
This is the punishment that you face for not getting into video games too early when GameFly was a thing. This is what's going to happen.
GameFly's still a thing.
It is still a thing? I forgot about that. Is it good thing, or is it just a... I know no one knows about it.
Get Xbox Game Pass.
What do you have an Xbox? We have a PlayStation.
Huh?
What do you have a PlayStation? Well, in that case, I would just tell you to wait for their service.
Because they've got a service coming down the line as well. And get some PlayStation Plus. They've got like fucking 30 games that you can go play on the PlayStation Plus collection for free if you have, quote unquote, free if you have PlayStation Plus. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, guys, you really do have a lot of options. Connor, are there any other like big gaming myths that you can think of? Something real generic, something real simple that you might hear from a parent or something, or violence. Violence in video games.
That was literally like something about parental control.
Yeah.
Because there are options to turn off violence in video games, and ones that would otherwise be serviceable for children, if not for the violence. Just cut it off.
Xbox put out a game in the last year or two. It's a Bethesda game called Grounded. Is that the name of the game?
Yes.
They've got great options in terms of accessibility and lowering things like violence and so forth. Specifically, if you have an intense arachnophobia, you can literally turn the giant spiders in that game into like just floating blobs.
Yeah.
To like cute little floating blobs that aren't scary at all. There are...
We'll make fun of you for it,
listen,
but yeah.
It's undeniable that video games as a medium are quite violent. They're usually focused around shooters, blowing someone up, slicing throats, chopping people to bits, etc., etc., etc. You can go watch a Mortal Kombat fatality compilation on YouTube and think this is the devil's work. And I wouldn't blame you.
Considering what some of the developers have gone through in relation to the production of that, yeah, I can understand that.
Anyways, but that's a side thing.
Yeah.
This is also a medium of just great artistic expression, and despite what you may have heard from your mom or your grandma, or what you may personally believe, violence in video games really does not affect the temperament or the attitude of a child or of you personally. You might find some study that it does increase aggression, but only in the moment of playing. Once the game is off, you're back to normal. You're fine. Nothing's wrong with you. And the idea that violent video games breed school shooters or whatever, or violent video games breed violent actions. That's an older generation who don't understand the art form looking for a scapegoat so that they don't have to change the way they live. In reality, it's just not true.
No. In fact, there can be negatives to playing too many games, as with anything that you can use too much of, addiction. But there's actually more positives than there are negatives for playing video games. Medical purposes, things for improving brain function, those kinds of things.
Critical thinking, multitasking.
Motor functions, that does improve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Organization, has always helped, depending on what type of video game you're playing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And even then, there's so many great games out there that aren't violent. One of the best games that, or one of my favorite games that I've ever played is a game called Overcooked. It's a kitchen simulator game, but they add a fun twist to it. One level, you're working in a haunted kitchen. You gotta, work around some ghosts. Or this level is in a hot air balloon, and
I remember those.
Random things will be flying through the kitchen as you're playing, so on and so forth. It's not violent. It's you're picking up pieces of meat, you're throwing them on a fryer, you're putting it in a bun, you're serving it to a customer. Yeah. And that's it.
It's fun.
It's very, so very fun, and it's up to 4 players, or you can play single player, but I would recommend at least playing with 2. And it really is just one of the best gaming experiences out there, and you don't get it in any other medium like it.
Yeah.
Again, we already talked about it. Games for children on the Nintendo Switch. So many so many great family games, or so many great kid-friendly games that are still a ton of fun and worth playing as an adult as well. Most recently, and I think most notably, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, huge acclaims. And it's not a very violent game. There's action in it. There's violence in it. You're swinging a sword and you're stabbing things, but it's big cartoon goblins or a dragon or a wizard.
When you kill them.
Yeah, they go poof. There's no blood. There's no dismemberment. It's just poof. Yep. Cloud of smoke. They're gone now, and it's just like that. Lego games, I think, are a great place to start for kids. Man, they're a great place to start. I'm gonna champion a Lego game for the rest of my life. When I eventually do have kids, one of the first games they're gonna play, it's probably gonna be like a Mario 2D game or whatever, just because it'll be easiest for them to understand. Left, right, up, down. Yeah. That's it. But when they're ready for a little more complex stuff, they're 4, 5 years old. I'm gonna start introducing them to some Lego games. We're gonna play Lego games together. Lego Star Wars, and we're gonna beat each other up, and then when one of us quote unquote dies, they're just popping into fun little pieces, and they're right back into it immediately with full health. Games that are more focused on fun and playing around and having a good time, almost in as a kid in a sandbox where you're just kind of messing around and doing things and you don't know what. That's the type of experience those types of games can give.
Leading into kind of what we were talking about before, this is a very small group of people that might be wanting to get into video games, that a myth they would have to overcome, which is that video games are made for children. It's a childish act. If you play them, you're not very mature. As we said before, single-player games are an option. And those games have stories and characters that rival and surpass many movies and television shows that are out today. Mm-hmm. You find incredible writing in those kinds of games.
Absolutely.
That go beyond age. Actually, you need to be a little bit older in some cases to actually fully understand and comprehend them. So if for whatever reason you feel like, if you control a figure in a digital world, that's all of a sudden something that only children should do because it's a game, a toy, just get rid of that and play them, because there are old people out there who have, played video games, and actually some of them have careers off of them, YouTube careers, because they enjoyed them so much. The myth of them being for children just doesn't hold up if you ever actually get your hands on games.
There is no potential for deep, meaningful narrative experiences. There's no medium out there, whether it's books, movies, TVs, music, for deep emotional impact. There's no medium that has more potential for that than a video game. Mm-hmm. Simply because of how engaging they are. It's a two-way street. It's not a one-way. It's not a linear form of entertainment like a movie is. Sure, you could be moved to tears by the new Martin Scorsese film. I can't tell you, and there are benefits to that as well. Sometimes I am in the mood for a heartbreaking film rather than a heartbreaking video game, just based off of the mood I'm in or whatever.
Yeah.
But saying goodbye to my best friend in the Mass Effect series, or a Persona game, mm-hmm. has never felt more heartbreaking and more real and more personal than it has when compared to Schindler's List, or when compared to Avengers Endgame or whatever. Run the gambit on whatever huge emotional experience you had in a movie theater or watching a TV show or something. I was driven to tears because I was saying goodbye to a friend. Mm-hmm.
I know you're thinking of Persona 4 right now.
Yeah, man, that is a phenomenal game. Anyways, or it was me who had to break Ellie out of the hospital. Mm-hmm. That was me protecting my daughter. You know, it was me killing my father or whatever.
When you have control of a character, you can more easily put yourself in that perspective because you're controlling it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they have RPGs, is because for all intents and purposes, it's role-playing games, yes. It is your character. You create him from the ground up, from his looks to how he acts in conversation. He, for all intents and purposes, is you.
Yep.
And the relationship that you choose to have or not have is entirely dependent on you. And that's an experience you can only get in video games. You can't get them anywhere else.
Yeah. You are not Iron Man.
No.
Or you are not Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man.
That's a better way to put it.
But you can be Iron Man, I don't know, in Marvel's Avengers. But you can be Spider-Man in 2018 Spider-Man, you know, for PlayStation 4. These are... There is no spoilers there because it's still new. The new Spider-Man movie's in theaters right now.
Yeah.
There is a character who dies in that movie. I guess a slight spoiler. Oh no, somebody dies.
Yeah.
Who dies in that movie. And there's a character who dies in the video game. I was sad in both cases of a character dying in each of those properties. But it hit me way harder in the video game because that character felt closer to me because I was in the character's shoes. The character didn't progress to the end of the story without me. It's because of me that the character got there. And to circle back to your point of this is video games are for children. They're toys. Yes, they are. They're toys. Yeah. But how much more of a toy are they than a movie? You know?
You're getting entertainment out of it.
It's entertainment.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And however you find something entertaining, however you find something fun or engaging, or this is how you spend your time, great. This medium reaches back to the 70s, so it's still young. It's been around 50 years, 60-ish max.
Even though you're kind of stretching about, there's a big stretch between video games then and video games now.
Absolutely.
Transformed.
But it's only getting more and more mature, and it's only getting more and more meaningful and impactful. Sure. Super Mario Brothers for the Nintendo Entertainment System from the 80s. Yeah, okay. There's nothing really there. Go save the princess, walk to the right, beat the bad guy. That's about it. But just directly compare that to... I don't want to keep reaching for The Last of Us, but I think it's the best example of this.
Go Mass Effect.
Mass Effect, or even God of War 2018. There's no more gripping or mature story that is being told, I would argue, than those three examples. One, because the writing takes itself seriously. Two, the writing is usually better, or is usually, more excellent than it is not. And C, what was my first point?
Your first point.
Never mind. It's just a more engaging, more gripping experience. I can't believe I drew a blank there, and lost my point. But it is what it is. Connor, I think we've just about covered it.
Yeah, I think so as well.
If you're looking for your best bang for your buck, probably an Xbox Game Pass. If you're looking for something that you can play around kids, you might want to look around on the Nintendo Switch. Oh, what if you don't know where to go? PlayStation, we just covered this last week. We covered this a few weeks ago, actually. There is if you don't know what to get, or if you're looking around for something for your kids or something, you have no idea what to do, and you feel what's the word? Intimidated. If you feel intimidated by walking into a game store or something, there's a great website called Family Video Game Database. PlayStation just partnered with them to get them more support and get them more funding and all of that, in which they do great work in doing kind of all of that research for you. These are appropriate for children's age to blank to blank. These are great for gamers with disabilities with X, Y, and Z disability. These games have great parental controls. These games have this type of content in it. Hey, you're not going to get caught off guard or caught by surprise when your kid is suddenly playing a game like Saints Row, and there's prostitutes and shooting and blood and throwing feces, versus, hey man, this is a great Mario game. Anybody can play it. Everyone's gonna have fun. I brought up It Takes Two earlier. It Takes Two recently at the Game Awards won Game of the Year. It also won Best Family Game. And if you're a parent who doesn't know what he's doing, but looking for a great video game experience to have with your kid, It Takes Two on paper may look great for you and your kid. I would advise, depending on the age of your child, maybe don't play that game with that child, because there is a scene or two that gets very dark and kind of graphic, and they cover it up in some kid friendliness filters to make it seem more appropriate than it really is. But there's one scene in particular regarding an elephant. Look it up if you're interested. In which I'm not playing that scene with a 5-year-old child. Absolutely not.
That'd be one of those situations where I would, just because it'd be funny to see their reaction. Because I even felt bad during that. I was like, oh god, this is something I don't like doing.
It was shockingly graphic.
It was. No blood, not graphic in that regard.
Not in a bloody way, but
content matter.
It was intense.
Yeah.
It was very intense in a way that was shocking to me. And so it winning Best Family Game of the Year, I think, was the wrong call. I wouldn't play that with a 5-year-old. I'd play that with a 10 or 12 or 14-year-old. Sure, that makes sense. But a toddler to just a young child, no, that's probably not the best sense. So again, Family Video Game Database. Let me get the actual taminggaming.com is a great resource for you to kind of find out what's what and how it can kind of work for you. They have great lists where they list out their favorite games, curated lists of games where you can get kind of this type of vibe or feeling or tone or whatever that you're looking for. New games all over the place. I'm literally just reading from their website right now. They've got blog spaces for parents to talk about and converse and give recommendations to each other, and just a great conversation piece going through there. And they've got a great variety of games that are going in, and it's only getting bigger, especially with their partnership with PlayStation just the other week. So lot of great resources out there for you. Don't feel intimidated. Somebody has the answer for you. You just might have to ask around a little bit, or just kind of listen to yourself and say, okay, how interested in this am I, and how much am I willing to put in? Time and money are big factors. Video games take a while to play, and they're expensive. But I personally would say there's no more meaningful medium of entertainment out there than a video game.
Yeah, it's one of the best. And also, just use your instinct. At the end of the day, if you feel like you would like something more than something else, go with that route.
Absolutely.
Trust your gut.
Absolutely trust your gut. And there we go.
Yeah.
Best bang for your buck. Best way to figure out what you may or may not like and develop your taste. Xbox Game Pass, family stuff, Nintendo Switch, premium impactful experiences, PlayStation, premium, most high quality performance. That like, hey, I'm going big, go for PC. Or if you're just looking for something to kill time while you're on the toilet, load up that Apple App Store, or that Google Play Store, et cetera, and just
get your fingers working.
And again, where you start doesn't matter. Where you end doesn't matter. As long as you're enjoying what you're doing, more power to you.
Yeah.
Power to the players, as GameSpot would say, or GameStop would say.
Power to the players.
Power to the players. Anyways, Connor, usually we are at hour 13.
Damn, really?
Of our podcast. Yeah, we burned through that. So the idea of us passing our topics and our pennies back and forth, man, we blew right through that. And you know what? I think we're you know what? Yeah, we're just gonna skip the what we've been playing segment that we usually do on this show. So that is gonna be it.
One thing I do want to point out.
Yeah, go ahead.
For anybody that may have gotten a PS5 and had a PS4 originally and are getting ready to transfer over their consoles, make sure you plan out in advance how you're going to do that, because I'm currently, last I checked, at a 44-hour wait time for the transfer to fully complete from my PS4.
44 hours?
Yeah, and so I have to just wait for those games to finish.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah.
What do you have? What do you get?
Well, my main issue was that so you can link with an Ethernet cable your PS5 to your PS4.
Uh-huh.
That would have been the best bet. Now,
I didn't do that.
Yeah, I didn't do that either because I thought, oh, you have to be on the same internet at least, so I'll just do that. Well, this is what's happened as a result of my internet. So if your internet's
It
not
didn't
the
take
best,
me 44 hours, and I played more video games than you.
maybe. Okay, the transfer started, but the games that I wanted, because you go through 2 steps. You do the transfer for which data you want to bring in, which I did in 45 minutes.
Your save data of every game you've played on the PlayStation 4. Yeah, and you get to pick and choose which specific games you want to bring over. Or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
The problem is the installing of specific games. I didn't choose that much, but it's still very,
That's just
very
your
negative.
internet. Your internet sucks.
It could be, but it's also like not everyone has good internet. So just a
You're
warning.
right. You're right.
Just a warning.
Yeah. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for your 2 Penny Gamescast episode 75. Thank you so much for listening. If you're a new gamer and you were trying to check it out, hey man, I appreciate you jumping in and listening to us ramble about things kind of coherently. We're
Relatively, I think so.
I think we kind of touched on most possible question marks that could be had, but if not, drop a comment. I'm always monitoring our comment section, so please drop a comment, let us know. And if you're a regular listener, thank you so much for listening again. Drop a like, a follow, subscribe, all of that. Remember, you can get this podcast every Monday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/2pennygamescast, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We're out here. Drop a follow, a like, share it with your friends. We really do appreciate it. Again, just a quick reminder, Spotify just released a rating system for their podcast. So if you guys could go over to the main Spotify page, even if you don't listen on Spotify, and just drop a quick 5-star review on us, that would really help us get into circulation, because Spotify is a platform that does better numbers than other platforms that we're on. And we would really appreciate you just kind of helping us circulate and get in front of more people's faces that way. Remember, you can watch us play games over at twitch.tv/2pennygames, where you can actually go and watch the VODs of what I've been playing this week. That we're going to skip over that segment this week, and we'll get back to it next week, which I believe next week, Connor, is our top 10 games of the year episode. Yes, it is. Next week is our top 10 video games of the year, so it's going to be a long one. It's going to be me, Connor, and returning friend Phil from twitch.tv/2pennygames is coming over as well, and we're going to give a top 10 list. Eventually, we should be doing a top games that we played on Hype. Again, Hype is a show we do over at twitch.tv/2pennygames every Tuesday, usually 1 p.m. Central Time, but that time may change TBD because Phil moved, so we gotta change our setup and stuff, and so it might take us longer to get to it day to day because we've got stuff to do in the morning. Anyways, beside the point. So that time may change to 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, somewhere around there. Come check us out, twitch.tv/2pennygames. Hype, have you ever played? In which one of us shows the other one a video game they've never played before. Phil is continuing his playthrough of God of War 2018. He's been we took a break from it because I was out of town for 2 weeks, but we are jumping straight back into it this next week. Please go check that out. After the Hype, our review show, 4 games we play on Hype, Jak 3, the good one, is what I titled it.
You spoiled it. So
I did spoil it, but go find out why it's the good one. Go find out why it's good. YouTube.com/2pennygamescast. And currently, Phil's first playthrough of Metal Gear Solid 2. If you missed it live 11 months ago when we played it, it is currently going up live on youtube.com/2pennygamescast right now. We're about halfway through that playthrough. Go check it out, see where Phil's at, see how he's tackling all of those twists and turns that we all know and love. But that'll do it for us here today, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great week, until next week, have a great week. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye.